Do you still believe power belongs to politicians, billionaires, and CEOs? Sure, Trump, Bezos, and Bill Gates have influence, but they're nowhere near the people who've been quietly running the world for decades. BlackRock is the world's largest investment corporation that was almost unknown for years. Today, it's become the ultimate symbol of invisible power. More and more people believe it's the true hidden ruler of the modern world, and there's a reason for that. The deeper you dig into its history, the harder it becomes to tell what's fact and what's conspiracy. This video will cover everything you need to know about BlackRock with no fluff. The beginning. BlackRock was founded in 1988 in New York City by Lawrence Fink, a former vice president at the investment bank First Boston. In the 1980s, that bank was one of the biggest on Wall Street. Fink became its youngest managing director ever, at just 31. He was considered one of the bank's brightest talents, until 1986, when a bad decision in bond trading cost the bank nearly $100 million. It was a huge blow, both for the company and for Fink himself. After losing $100 million, Fink realized that to survive in finance, it's not enough to invest. You must understand risk better than anyone else. That idea became the foundation of BlackRock's future success. The company started as part of the Blackstone Group, but soon split off and went its own way. Its biggest strength was data, powerful analytics that allowed it to calculate risks with incredible precision. That's when Aladdin was born, the brain of BlackRock, still one of the most advanced financial systems ever created. Without it, BlackRock wouldn't be able to control the world. Every day, trillions of dollars flow through the system. And many say Aladdin is not just a piece of software, it's the digital control center of the global economy. But let's take it step by step. To understand how BlackRock operates, it's important to know one thing. It's not a bank and not a classic investment firm. It doesn't promise clients quick profits. Instead, it offers steady, long-term growth while playing on a global scale. By the early 2000s, BlackRock already managed hundreds of billions of dollars, but the real turning point came in 2008, during the global financial crisis, the same one that probably affected you or your parents and entire countries around the world. When the crisis hit, BlackRock already had capital, experience, and most importantly, Aladdin. While big banks were collapsing, BlackRock had something no one else did, a system that could track toxic assets down to the very last cent. With everything falling apart, the US government and the Federal Reserve turned to Larry Fink and BlackRock, hoping they could help clean up the mess and pull the country out of the crisis. Besides, Fink personally knew many top bankers and politicians, so he had both trust and influence. On one hand, BlackRock really did help stabilize the markets. On the other, that story led to some crazy conspiracy theories. There is no denying it. The Federal Reserve had effectively handed control of the nation's financial system to a private company, to a man who just 10 years earlier had suffered one of the Wall Street's biggest losses. BlackRock now had access to confidential financial data of the US and its citizens, and one of the main theories says that from that moment on, it was BlackRock making the country's most important economic decisions, and as a result, possibly those of the entire world. Do you personally believe that? Let us know in the comments. But the most important part is, after the crash in 2008, BlackRock was the only player that didn't just survive. It grew stronger, richer, and more powerful than ever. Its influence reached unprecedented levels. When Wall Street was in shambles, the Federal Reserve and the US Treasury turned to Larry Fink specifically, letting BlackRock help manage bad assets, restructuring debt, and handling bailout funds. From that point on, the company wasn't just a market player, it became an advisor to governments across the world. BlackRock worked on risk analysis for central banks, consulted for the EU and Canada, and even helped the FRS distribute government bonds during the COVID-19 pandemic. To many, it looked like the boundary between private company and government was fading. Today, BlackRock manages over $10 trillion in assets. That's more than the GDP of Japan and Germany combined. It owns stakes in nearly every major corporation, from Apple, Microsoft, and Google to Pfizer, ExxonMobil, and JP Morgan Chase. Through its funds and portfolios, BlackRock now has access to millions of companies, banks, and industries across the globe. But here's another interesting fact. BlackRock now also advises the US government on actions regarding major corporations, the very companies whose shares it holds. Essentially, Larry Fink controls both the shares and the laws that will affect them in the future. However, there's one thing you need to know. Technically, these assets don't belong to BlackRock. The company only manages them on behalf of clients. But the critics point out that because BlackRock has voting rights at shareholder meetings, it has the power to steer the world's largest corporations, deciding which projects move forward, who runs the companies, and even what policies they follow. But let's talk a bit more about Aladdin, short for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. It's an internal data analysis tool used for managing investments. Today, Aladdin processes data for more than $20 trillion in assets worldwide. It's used not only by BlackRock's employees, but by hundreds of banks, investment funds, and even government institutions. Aladdin analyzes risks, forecasts crises, and helps decide what assets to buy or sell. In a way, it's a huge network that monitors almost every major financial flow on the planet. That's why some researchers call Aladdin a global financial AI, or the Google for those that control global markets. The exact cost of the system isn't publicly disclosed, but here's what leaks and reports suggest. Over $1 billion has been spent on its development and maintenance since the 1990s. If a small company wants even partial access to this mega brain, it'll cost them roughly $1 million a year. Bigger banks have to shell out $10 million. More than 20 trillion moves through Aladdin's analysis daily, twice the US GDP and nearly a quarter of the world's entire financial system. BlackRock's influence has often sparked suspicion. The company has faced criticism from politicians, activists, and even the courts. In 2024, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit against BlackRock, accusing it of market manipulation and collusion with other giants, State Street and Vanguard. According to the allegations, they coordinated efforts to push so-called green policies, restricting companies involved in oil and coal. Conservatives in the US accuse BlackRock of pushing a political agenda and interfering in the economy and ideology. Progressive activists, on the other hand, criticize it for doing too little, pretending to care about the environment while still investing in fossil fuels. With power like this, it's no surprise that dozens of theories have appeared. The most popular one claims BlackRock practically owns everything, often mentioned alongside Vanguard and State Street. Together, this big three supposedly controls up to 90% of the global stock market. You can find charts all over social media linking them to every major brand, from Coca-Cola to Tesla. A different theory suggests BlackRock is buying up houses and even entire neighborhoods across the US, effectively turning US citizens into renters. This generates a steady 5 to 10% annual return, an ideal passive income for a corporation of its size. Many Americans today, especially younger ones, struggle to afford their own homes. And it seems that BlackRock is preparing for a future where nobody owns their house, where everything is subscription-based, rented, and owned by BlackRock. Another theory claims that BlackRock, through its Aladdin platform and ESG policies, effectively dictates terms to governments. Larry Fink openly states that companies should serve society, not just shareholders, which sounds noble, but critics see it as an attempt to impose a new model of capitalism, where a private corporation decides what values are correct and must be adopted by society. At this point, it's undeniable. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a single company is the new reality. BlackRock controls a significant part of the global economy. And even if it's technically legal, the fact that a private company can shape global markets and the decisions of the biggest corporations makes you wonder, who really runs the world? It's no surprise that Larry Fink himself avoids publicity. He rarely gives interviews and almost never appears in the news. But behind the scenes, he's considered one of the most influential people on Earth. In 2020, Forbes listed him among the most powerful people in the world. He's not elected, answers to no voters, and has no army. Yet, he can influence corporations more than any politician. And that means, in some ways, he influences everything else too. BlackRock isn't a shadow government in the traditional sense. It's a new kind of power, based not on ideology or weapons, but on data, algorithms, and assets. Its strength comes from being invisible. Millions of people don't even realize their retirement funds, mortgages, and savings are managed by this corporation. Facts and theories about BlackRock often overlap. The line between them is thin, because the company truly sits at the center of the global financial system. Some see it as a brilliant business, while others see a threat to democracy and national sovereignty. And perhaps that's the real mystery of BlackRock. The more you try to understand how it works, the more it feels like it controls everything. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
Larry, what a pleasure to have you here today for so many reasons.